All right, welcome back. Welcome to another video. And in this one, we are looking at a case study from the actual price action of Solana. When Solana crashed approximately 43%, how I and the rest of the community and liquidity providers was only down approximately 6% instead of 43. Okay. And I am referring to this price action right here, basically uh, assuming in this scenario that the entry to the liquidity pool happened on January 14th, which was the peak of Solana price in 2026 so far, right? So as you can see, the price was approximately 147 and the drawdown that happened is approximately 43. Looking at the current price, and the peak was approximately 50% more or less. So we all know that the majority of retail uh, and retail mine, they always buy when everyone is screaming to buy, which is usually very near or at the top of the current cycle, so to speak. So even though we've been in positions for way longer and um, yeah, we assume the worst possible scenario for this video, okay? Just to show you how it works, not when everything is super cool and green and bullish, but when it's actually incredibly down and painful to watch. Still, liquidity provision can help you from that, but you have to allocate the capital smartly, okay? So in this scenario, a single 100k concentrated liquidity position on Orca opened at a 2026 peak, walked through 85.4 days of real Solana price action against a naive HODL position when you bought simply some Solanas from USDC, from stables, from dollars, doesn't matter. You simply went ahead and just bought some Solana within this region because, well, it had a drawdown already and it started to recover. Everyone's saying Solana is going to the moon, blah, blah, blah. The majority of retail mine operate at this level, so they just buy at the worst possible prices. So let's assume that um, one side of people did exactly that. They bought somewhere in between this range, and the other side, liquidity provision, etc., actually allocated the way that we did. So, and we're gonna do the comparison, okay? So this is how a down biased range on the LP position absorbed the crash and turned a 43% spot market dump into a minus 6% drawdown. Okay, so the Sol spot price dropped 43% from 147 to 83. This is assuming current prices more or less. The peak was a bit higher, right? So liquidity pool with fees experienced only 6% drawdown. Okay, 93k still remains on 100k position. The maximum drawdown for the HODL position is about 49%. So this is the peak from the peak to through, which is kind of the spike. Okay. And the liquidity pool maximum drawdown was approximately 17%. So the setup was really simple. You deploy 100k into Orca Sol USDC position. You pick a wide 80% range skewed heavily downward. Why 80% and why 90-10 ratio? This is a bit more advanced based on math, which covers the majority of annualized Solana volatility. But don't ask me why now, because this is a separate video. This is a lot of work went into finding these numbers and stuff. So all of this is basically explained. But yeah, this is how this is not like a pre-made setup that made the best possible conditions. Not at all. If you watch what's inside a DeFi house, you will understand what I mean. That this is not some sort of a special occasion range just for this video. This is what uh, community people, us, everyone been using around, basically because that's how the math works in our favor. Um, anyway, the goal is to survive the volatility, right? So here is what it looks like. So the entry date was January 14, entry price was 147, capital 100K. The range width was 80% and the down up split was 90 and 10, which means that out of those 80%, you make 90% downside and 10% upside. As they said, the reason why is a very long and technical explanation based on hundreds of thousands of data points. But to keep things really simple, the range width is covering the majority of annualized sol volatility, and the ratio is because a crypto is dumping more days per year than it goes up. So it's naturally that you want to make the range in most cases downside, because the asset can go up extremely high and active for 4 days, but it will go down the same amount of um, price change in a few months. So it goes up quicker and within a shorter period of time than it goes down. Okay, so this is why to be profitable in DeFi liquidity provision, you cannot deploy 50-50 splits. It's not gonna work in long-term perspective. So anyway, it's not about that. So the lower price, the range was 41 from 147, and the upper price was 159. And you deposited in this way a 7.4% up, so 50.3 Solanas, and 92.6% down, which you remained at 92.578K in USDC at the time of deposit. Okay, so you enter the pool with specifically this settings 80% range 90-10 split, so you entered within this kind of capital. Okay, so why there is no point in explaining super in detail, but basically when you drop into the range at the top of the range, that the automatic ratio is mostly in the quote token. So basically, this is a pretty simple analogy that you just told me to that you want to buy Sol all the way down to 41 because this is your lower range from the current price. So it's like, fine, I will hold your money in USDC and gradually convert it to Sol as the price falls. This is how the automated market making works. Okay, so your 90% down range is not a bet on Solana, but it's like a staged buy order all the way down. So this is exactly why the position absorbs the crash rather than experiences in 100% on equity. So the math is really simple. So you have your range bounds, you have the version 3 pools deposit formulas, so to speak, which is like a basically Uniswap or Orca whirlpools on Solana. So you have the math is really simple in this case, and the initial position at 147 is exactly like we showed. So you deploy 100K, out of which 7.4 is in Solanas immediately. So you buy 50 Solanas at 147, not the best, but not the worst. And 92K remains in USDC, but you are already in pool in range earning the fees. Now, the crash that happened from the current price, as you can see, on January 14, this is your upper range limit, which is 159, and the lower range 41. So within this range, you are earning the fees, plus you absorb the volatility. And because you made the range 90-10 asset split and 80% width, you cover the majority of volatility for Solana. So as the price goes down on each tick, your USDC starts to get converted towards Solanas step by step on each price tick down. If it goes up, your USDC is being converted, your Solana is being converted to USDC, right? But if it goes down, then it's vice versa. It's just the native math of AMMs, automated market makers. That's how it works. So deploying always 50-50 ratio is the worst thing you can do, especially if you use small range and 50-50 range. Small range, sorry, and 50-50 ratio split. It's the worst possible thing for long-term sustainability. Yes, you will make some profits short-term, but if volatility event happens, you will be left with a very heavy impermanent loss. So that's the crash itself, and this is how the liquidity pool versus HODL, the equity curve. Okay, so both strategies start with 100k. One buys Solana at the top and holds it. That's it. You just executed at these prices. You bought some Solana, and you now simply keep it in your wallet or whatever, right? The other deploys into the concentrated liquidity range. So the fees for the LP are approximately at 0.12% per day. This is like a normal range that such position would generate with the current volumes. Sometimes it's a bit less, sometimes slightly more, but on average you could expect approximately 0.12% per day in yield, which is approximately 3 to 4% a month, depending if the volume is really active or not. But even with such a big range width, I've never saw a month below 2% a month. Okay. So, uh, and that's basically how it happens, right? The LP with fees, LP with no fees, okay, is in green and yellow, and the HODL is in red. So basically, since the start of the crash, the LP is maintaining the money and it's slowly being converted, as you can see, towards, yes, it's losing value a bit, but as the price goes down, as you can see, for example, at this point, your LP is still at 91k while the HODL position is at 63. You already have like almost 40% lost, right? Just from holding Solana, and you lost only 9k on more or less with LP because you are absorbing the crash slowly, and on each tick down you are basically accumulating more Solanas. That is how the drawdown looks. LP drawdown versus HODL. Once again, LP a drawdown is steady and starts to go slowly, right? While the HODL drawdown is immediate. As soon as Solana drops, you absorb all the volatility. So this is why you experience such a heavy a drawdown crash, while here you are slowly buying and buying and buying and buying more Solanas, okay? So the final tally was you buy a 100k Sol at the top or around it. The final value is 56k. The return is minus 43, max drawdown 49. With LP position, even without the fees, assuming you earned no yield, just stayed in range, for example, which is not possible because you are still earning something. It may be less than what I told you, slightly less, but still earning something. So the final value is 84 with 15% return and 17% drawdown, while with the fees, you end up at 93.6 with minus 6% return and 17 drawdown when Solana crashed in half. Okay, so as you can see, the outperformance is insane, and the reason why it worked is really simple: the automated DCA mechanism. The real magic is watch how your Sol holdings grow as the price falls. So you started with the 50.3 Solanas, as you remember here, right? 50.3 Solanas, and you ended with 490.75 Solanas. So the range converted your USDC into Sol automatically at progressively better prices. This is the core idea of being in liquidity pool with correct range setup, okay, and asset split ratio to benefit from the crash or to exit if the price starts to go up. It can work vice versa. You can do 90-10 range from the other side, 90% up and 10% down, right? It all depends on what narrative the retail mind is running on. So you know uh, to take the opposite approach. It works every time. So the fees acquired during this time was approximately 9k from the 100k position. Okay, as you can see, on approximately 0.12% a day assumption, which is very close to reality. I cannot tell you the exact number because this number on Orca is always dynamic, it's always changing. And actually, maybe we can check right now. If we open up Orca, as you can see, 31 up and 53 down is just 80% range in general, is about 114, 0.146% a day. So it's still 80% range and generates uh, about 0.14 under current conditions. It can go down, of course, it can go up. It's always dynamic based on the volume. So the final number is that while Solana dropped in half, yeah, at a peak of pretty much 50%, LP position that was set up professionally managed to lose only 6%, acquired some fees meanwhile, which of course is not covering fully the impermanent loss because the drop was so aggressive. But now you still have most of your capital. You acquired Solana at a better prices, and you are definitely able to handle 6% drawdown way more easier psychologically and well physically um, than 43 or even 50% drawdown simply by holding Solana. It does not make sense in any market condition to just go ahead and buy Solana or just sell Solana, because you can do the same thing in a much more smarter professional way using DeFi liquidity pools. You can exit, for example, your position as well. If you have loads of Solanas bought at good prices and you are now in a nice profit, what you can do is vice versa. Just deploy the pool with the range up only and just a tiny bit of range down. And as the price goes up, you will be deployed mostly in Solanas in this case. And then as the price goes up, you are slowly converted towards USDC. So you are exiting slowly out of your Solanas, plus you earn the fees while by providing liquidity. So guys, this is so much more professional and mature than just being a simple retail mind, just buying and selling assets. It does not make sense under these conditions, under any conditions, right? Unless you're filling some spot assets for your treasury and you want to borrow against them, blah, blah, blah. It's all different strategies that are possible. And we show all of them in DeFi House, right? But basically, all you have to do is deploy capital smartly in a mature professional way. And that way, you are able to absorb the volatility in your favor rather than being stuck with 40% drawdown and waiting for the miracle to happen for Solana to go back 80% now to basically get back to break even, right? So thank you. Hopefully it was beneficial and makes sense. It may be a little bit complicated to understand how this AMM works if you are not familiar with DeFi pools. But guys, if this is the first time you watching my channel, go ahead, watch the videos. I show everything, absolutely everything that nobody in the space, all the gurus will never show you that because they don't understand it themselves yet, right? Because they're selling some sort of a stuff rather than learning how to deploy into DeFi professionally and not chase short-term gains, right? Because if we go to Orca and we go to, let's say, Sol Pool, if I make uh plus 2 minus 2% range, super small range, right? Yeah, I can show you 1% a day. I can show you 400% almost a year. Like you will 4x your money. But what they don't understand, and what the majority of retail don't understand, this is not sustainable. Assuming you will never leave the range and you will not need to rebalance the pool, which you will, because 4% range in Solana um, can happen in hour, and you will have multiple rebalances per day, which will destroy your principal amount. Anyway, thank you guys for watching again. Yeah, because I can speak and speak forever about these topics, so I have to stop. Wishing you all the best, and as always, I will see you on the next videos. Take care.